Darkness. Pure and simple absence was all that filled the room. The air was as motionless as the walls that held back the light, yet the void felt as if it had physically manifested itself into something more than nothing. The black area within the four walls felt as if it had become solid. He remained motionless where he lied on the floor. He assumed it was concrete. He could feel that his eyelids had opened, but his eyes were unable to decipher anything around him. There was a moment where he considered the possibility that he had gone blind and that he was actually in a fully lit room. He couldn't dismiss this possibility, but he felt that it was more likely that the room was just solid. He pulled himself up to a sitting position and placed his palms on the cold floor. It was smooth but solid. There was no way it was anything other than concrete. He rubbed the surface and was impressed by the designer's masonry, if only for a moment. Even though there's no light, there has to be a door. He stared into the void. I just have to find it. He began crawling in the direction in front of him. His movement was slow as he reaches out to feel for anything. He had no way of knowing how big the room actually was. As he slowly crept forward, he stopped when his hand hit another rough surface. Bricks. He rubbed the rough wall and felt the spots where they were held together. Okay, so there's this wall. He pulled himself up to a standing position and held the wall. His arms spread out, almost as if he was hugging the solid surface in front of him. He stepped rhythmically in one direction until his hand hit another brick wall. Once he had marked where the corner was in his mind, he turned and stepped in the opposite to judge the size of the room. Much to his dismay, he hit the other corner after only 10 steps. He repeated this process until he was certain he'd hit every corner. The room was 10 steps, which he equated to about 10 feet, give or take, in each direction. He was trapped in a 10 by 10 room with no light and, notably, no door. How could a room have no door? Unless I was dropped in from a hatch above. He looked up. But there would probably be light coming in if there was a hatch. It would be damn near impossible to block that out that well. He kept his gaze upward. He had no idea where he was, and no idea how he would get out. He wasn't even sure if here was a place or just a fragment of his own imagination. Could a place like this really exist? Could someone have built a light-proof room around him? Alas, it must be true. But how? How could someone keep him unconscious long enough to build such a complex room around him? The man is not able to comprehend such a thing, for as his thoughts are interrupted by the sounds of scraping. It is by no means a metallic sound, but more of a nails on a chalkboard. He spins around and around to see where the sound had come from. However, the darkness consuming the area around him made that task impossible. "Do you know why you are here?" a voice questions. "No," he answers. "You have been a terribly selfish man." "How so?" "Let's start with the child in your neighborhood, shall we? You weren't paying attention to the road when you slammed into him. That wasn't my fault. The fault lies within you and you alone. That stupid phone was more important than ensuring the safety of others. It was an accident, that's all." "Was the girl you assaulted an accident as well?" the voice harshly questions. "That was a misunderstanding." "And the man you sent to the hospital? Do you consider beating someone with a lead pipe an accident?" "Look, I have made mistakes in my life, but those instances were in no way my fault." "Absurd! You knew exactly what you were doing, yet you didn't care. Those innocent people's lives were ruined." "What do you want from me?" the man shouts. "I've apologized. I've paid for my actions. What more is there to do?" "Apologies are worthless if it isn't sincere. I do not care for your apologies, nor do I care if other people have forgiven or simply looked past those horrible things. I, on the other hand, cannot and will not ever forgive the monster whom assaulted my sister, killed my younger brother, and beat up my brother-in-law." "What?" the man says. Assuming there would be a hint of remorse plastered onto this man's face would be premature, for he had committed violent acts and is most likely incapable of feeling anything. You have not truly paid for your crimes, but don't worry. You have a long time to think everything through, the voice menacingly chuckles. I would be careful when roaming around that dark room. It can be quite sharp. Please don't do this. I'm sorry. I don't want to die, the man pleads. An abrupt sound of rushing water floats into the man's line of hearing. He frantically walks around the room in an attempt to find the source for the sound, but there's not one place he could find that would allow any such thing to enter his layered prison. The man bangs his fists against the brick walls, fingernails desperately scratching at the rectangular bricks. Hopelessness washed over the man when water surrounded his knees. He sank to the floor in a helpless manner. He had truly been defeated by a person crazed for revenge for things that this man had done in his past. He had made a lot of regrettable mistakes while he was younger, and he probably didn't think twice about his past coming back to haunt him. Things could have turned out differently had he just come clean and allowed himself to pay the consequences for his actions. The man sits in the water surrounding him, head against the cool surface of the wall behind him. He is doomed to spend the rest of his life in this bricked 10 by 10 foot prison, doomed to replay those incidents in his mind until he is eventually driven insane. The person whom had built this wall around him must be satisfied with this unfortunate event, for the man will be paying the price he should have paid over 8 years ago. One life will waste away, the body withering into nothing as an act of revenge from a person desperate to right the wrongs that had been bestowed upon their family. Hello, my dream demons. That story was called Bricks. I did write it as a modernization of Edgar Allan Poe's Cask of Amontillado. With that said, I do have things to get done in the nightmare realm, so I shall bid you adieu for now. If you happen to have nightmares tonight, then that just means I have accomplished my task. Please stay safe, everyone, and I will see you all later.